Hello. Do we, I just wanted to see who the participants are for today. Oh, we still have a lot of people coming in, so I'm going to give it just a second for people to come in. Okay, I'll get started. Hello, everybody from Danaher and all the Danaher subsidiaries. My name is Adria Bowen. I am the key account manager for MasterControl and also work with Danaher corporate very closely and some of their subsidiaries. So it's really good I know some folks on the line today I probably know and some I don't. But hopefully we can maybe collaborate on a few things after the call today. If you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to answer any questions. And just for some, if we could move to the agenda, please. Thank you. So we're going to be going over some AI, what kind of disruption we're seeing in the market, AI opportunities for life sciences, and our innovative approach to AI in the industry, in the life sciences industry. So we're really excited to have Renee VonBergen. She's our Director of Product Management presenting to us today. Renee is terrific and has great expertise in this area. And just for some housekeeping items, if you wouldn't mind using the chat or the QA area to ask any questions during the presentation. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session to get to your questions. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the webinar.
All right, thank you very much, Adria. Hello, Danaher, and all the attendees here. I'm going to just jump right in, and that way we can have time for questions at the end. Let's talk first about AI disruption in the market. We're going to go through many stats. Some of these you may find surprising, and some may be, oh, you knew it was significant, but didn't quite know how much. Gen AI or generative AI is what we're here mostly talking about today. There is a such a thing as predictive AI. Sorry about that. And we're going to focus on generative AI today because that's really the newest breakthrough starting from 2023. I think when ChatGPT really made its debut from a commercial or a consumer standpoint, both. That's really when that started getting everyone's attention. Who's paying attention to this? Executives ranked Gen AI as a top 3 priority for last year. Obviously, if it's in the top 3 last year, it's becoming even more of a focus point this year. And the reason that they're particularly interested in it is because they think that there's going to be huge performance gains because of it. Roughly 90%, though, of organizations are still in the earliest stages of adoption. We're seeing this no matter really who we talk to. There are some customers and prospects who stand out as really being quite advanced, but they're actually quite rare as far as what they plan to do with AI. Many are still figuring that out. They know that they want to prioritize AI, but don't have an implementation plan right now. And as you know, in a regulated environment, that's particularly important to be really careful about how AI and Gen AI in particular would be rolled out. And this surprised me, only 6% of companies have actually upskilled workers on AI. And yet the employees aren't waiting. So we see that 75%, this is a Microsoft study, 75% of the global knowledge workers surveyed are actually using Gen AI already. That's a huge number. And this next one kind of reminds me of bring your own phone to work. If you were in the workforce in 2007 when the iPhone came out, You know that there were some Blackberries and IT, corporate IT finally was resolved that, okay, we're going to adopt this. Had certain plans for it, and basically employees said, no, I think we're going to bring iPhones to work. And IT originally said, I'm not so sure about that. We need a rollout plan. And there was kind of a tidal wave of the groundswell saying, well, no, we're bringing our iPhones to work. And we're seeing that that's happening today. We're bringing ChatGPT to work, or Claude to work, or some other form of generative AI. Many tools are out there right now to help as well. And it's really, I think, going to be very important that companies get their plans together before it gets too out of hand, because employees are not waiting. And employees also are recognizing that they actually need those AI skills to remain competitive in the market. So, of course, there's always, as an employer, you're thinking about your career in addition to what you're doing at the company you currently work for. Even if you intend to stay for that for a very long time at that company, you're going to need skills to stay competitive with younger people coming in, or if you tend to want to move to a different company for another opportunity or something like that. AI skills are very important. And I'm spending a lot of time on this particular slide because really, I guess I can wrap it up by saying that AI is not going to replace you, but someone using AI will. That's something that we frequently talk about here at MasterControl. And so certainly I think that really sums up this particular thing that we're seeing here. So let's talk about life sciences in particular. And again, the life science, oops, I must have it built here. Life science itself is a huge opportunity within the area of AI. So let's dig into that a little bit. Drug discovery is leading the way right now, as you can imagine, with Gen AI, basically, crunching through a ton of data and figuring out. So generative AI is predictive in the sense that it's anticipating the next probable pattern, essentially, is what it comes down to. And so that's very useful in the area of drug discovery. You can see the stats here. As we go down in operations in particular, this is an area, right, where across the board, of course, in life sciences, there are regulatory concerns, but particularly in the area of operations, which is not making a lot of progress yet in that area. There's really a key barrier there in the form of regulatory concerns itself. And consequently, there's a hesitation or an uncertainty about how to use Gen AI in both quality and in manufacturing applications. So a recent survey, this comes out of McKinsey, shows that very few life sciences organizations are using AI at scale today. And this coincides, right, with some slides that we just looked at that said, on the whole, enterprises, large companies, et cetera, are not quite sure what their adoption strategy is going to be. The same is very true in life sciences, and actually a little bit more so, again, because of this concern for regulations. It's really important. There are many things to consider, but roughly 4 things come to mind as far as really having a successful implementation across the board. First is a data first approach. There's in software development, there's a saying, garbage in, garbage out. And essentially, where AI is particularly good at crunching data, if the data that it has access to, first of all, right, it has to have access to good data. If that data is not quality data, then you're not going to get any benefits out of AI at all. Actually, let me jump forward for a second to the next slide, because out of biopharma, they really succinctly put it right. A lot of times organizations make the mistake of doing AI without paying attention to data at all. And they soon find out that they should have started with the data side, really, in order to develop a robust strategy. So we see sometimes that, people are like, okay, well, yeah, data, understand it needs to be good, et cetera, but we'll worry about that alongside of AI implementation as a whole. And if data first isn't really the leader there, you're going to run into problems. Secondly, business value focus. So you want to basically have clearly defined priorities for what AI can do. AI is simply a technology among many technologies, and sometimes AI is not the technology to use. And so you really need to think about what it is. And when I say it's not the technology to use, it's not that it would be a bad technology. It's just that you might have cheaper alternatives. There is a compute cost when you're using AI. And so there might be a more traditional deterministic way to do something. And so really you need to be thinking about that sort of thing. And here's where 75%, again, this is coming from McKinsey, that 75% of the survey respondents said that their organization, right, to them, their perception is that there is no intentional design. So that's important. And then connecting those two, right, data and that business value and implementation plan as well as process is important, and that needs to scale. I know, again, in software development, we frequently do proofs of concepts and things like that, and a lot of times they're really good, but they die on the vine because they can't scale the way that they're designed. And so when you think about scale, right, that's an important thing to overlay on top of data and the business value. And then finally, robust governance. So again, this goes back to figuring out what your policies are regarding AI. This gets into things like understanding what biases may be introduced with LLM. An LLM is really the heart of generative AI. It stands for large language model. And essentially, it's just a model, or you could call it an algorithm, I suppose, which is a more common term. And that's really the brains behind the prediction and the pattern matching and that sort of thing with Gen AI. And you need to understand what data was trained, what was used to train it, et cetera. Meaning, how does the LLM know what it knows? Again, some more survey results. We're going to jump into how MasterControl is looking at things in a second here. Essentially, the value that customers are either realizing now or are anticipating are pretty significant. So we did some research in May of this year, for instance, where participants told us that the reduction in quality review time was pretty significant, right? Almost by 30% reduction. Those are, numbers that make a difference. And this is not only related to time to market and making sure that you're stopping issues or nonconformances, deviations, et cetera, before they get too out of hand. But it's also important because, every company is facing economic uncertainty. We do see layoffs in the market. And so something like this is very significant. Even, without a RIF in your workforce, you do want to, just for the sake of competitive advantage, have these types of efficiencies. 35% increase in productivity, 30 to 40% improvement in effectiveness of investigations, right? Some quality pursuits there. So I don't think that it's too controversial to say that Gen AI is certainly something that will make a difference and will give you a competitive advantage. There are certain things for sure to consider, and we're going to jump into some of that right now. When we look at AI at MasterControl, one of the things that we really like to say to remind just our whole internal teams as they're developing products for customer use is that AI, of course, is artificial intelligence, but we consider it as assistive intelligence. And so with that in mind, we want to make sure that it is assistive, right? So whatever we do to introduce this technology across the board, it needs to be helpful, not just introducing it for the sake saying that, hey, this is now with AI. That's sometimes in the consumer marketplace, something that happens quite frequently. Just, hey, we've put an AI stamp on this. And that's something that that's just so foreign. We can't do something like that. It needs to be actually quite helpful within the life sciences area. The graphic that you see here, what we're trying to convey here is that we've got traditional security across the board, right? We have a secure cloud. We have protocols that make sure that data transfers remain secure. We have things in place where we make sure that one customer's data cannot ever be accessed by another customer, et cetera, right? All of those things are just, of course, they're there, right? It's table stakes. And the same is true for how we've approached AI. Here, at the very bottom piece that is in this magenta kind of color, where it says Agentic AI Platform. I want to spend just a moment there and explain what that is. First of all, if you have kind of had half an ear in tune to the AI market, you understand the term agent, but might not actually understand what it means. An agent is just a piece of software, essentially, that is pretty autonomous. It has access to a certain set of tools to be able to accomplish a particular task. So for example, let's make this real. We have a product called Exam Generator. And when you say, hey, based on this particular document, I want to create exam questions, multiple choice. So I'm going to have a true answer and some what we call distractor answers, things that might be plausible but are actually incorrect. And by the way, those are often harder to come up with than the answer or question itself. And so the agent then, right, what's happening is it says, okay, great, I need to review the source material. I need to ask a question. And then I need to figure out the true answer and then figure out the plausible right, not wild and crazy, but plausible answers that might be right, or it's going to give the user pause and think about it, and make sure that they're actually understanding the course material. That's the work of an agent, and it's not really told how to go about doing that. It's the thing that then talks to the LLM to get the answer. It says, hey, LLM, based on this material, I need a question. Thank you for that question. Now, based on the material and the question, I need an answer, etc. All of that is happening in our closed system. And the reason that's important is that the alternative, for instance, would be to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to sign a corporate agreement with Claude, ChatGPT, or right, OpenAI. And of course, they're going to say, all right, contractually, I'm not going to use your data to train the model. And you have that agreement. But when you are taking your application and then it goes out to that third party, you're actually losing control of right, the custody of your data is now going outside of your control. It's a bit of a black box. You can't really audit the trail or the path that it took, and then it comes back to you. So we've decided intentionally to make sure that all of that stays within our domain. And it includes the fact that we have agents that we've written, and all the LLMs that we use are our own LLMs. And we also control those within our secure environment. So along with all the traditional security and data integrity, we have incorporated that into our agentic platform as well. A couple more slides here before we open it up to conversation or questions. One is, you've got this kind of a tension, a little bit of a balance between innovation and compliance. Certainly, right, just think of a traditional company, the more innovative they are as far as meeting, customer needs, the better competitive advantage, the greater competitive advantage they'll have. They'll be getting things to market faster. They'll have streamlined workflows, obviously, as we saw, right, the anticipation of that in the statistics that we looked at. And then they'll have continuous improvements. And that's something that an organization, no matter what area they're in, is something that, of course, is healthy to pursue and pays off in dividends. However, in our industry, life science as a whole, right, particularly, nutraceuticals, pharma, med devices, and so on. These things are all under rigorous control in the form of regulations. And those things might be something that comes like the Code of Federal Regulations from the FDA, for example. It might be an ISO standard that you need to comply with. It might be any number of things. And so compliance is important to balance against innovation as well. And those things like, right, data integrity, which I just spent a lot of time on that last slide talking about, that's incredibly important. You need to have an audit trail. You need to know why recommendations were made by an LLM, for instance. Those are things that must be tracked in a regulatory environment. Data privacy, obviously, without question, really everyone should have good ethics around that, but it's a requirement, right? As you know, in our space. Transparency, things like that, right? I kind of touched on that with saying like, hey, you should know why a recommendation was made. And the reason for that is that you, as a user, right, you would need to say, okay, system, you've made this recommendation to me, but what was it based on? Like, I can't just make a blind yes, I'll go along with you kind of thing. And it's also important for the sake of auditing, knowing why something was done. And of course, all of this is wrapped up in just managing risk, which is incredibly important. So the last thing really that I'll spend some time on here is 4 areas where MasterControl looks at really specializing in for life sciences. First of all, we talked about this before, right, where I was saying that we have the LLMs that are used within the Gen AI kind of loop here. We've written those, the agents, etc., all the services we use, everything is under our control, which is not just for the sake of data integrity, but also because we are in the life science space and understand the risks that are involved with that. Speaking of risks, we have low risk use cases. So no patient information is ever at risk here, nor is patient safety at risk. So we spend a lot of time showing you basically how in the tools that we have across the board, using AI to show you things that need to perhaps be improved, or give you ways to do things such as exam generation much faster than you would typically be able to use. We always have human in the loop as the buck stops here kind of thing. When we say, hey, we have a tool, for example, that creates exams, we actually have a tool that creates draft exams. And the reason, for that nuance is that it's important that a human expert really reviews those exam questions, gets the opportunity to edit them or regenerate them if they're not acceptable before it actually becomes an exam. And so that's just one way that human in the loop, as that's called in the industry, which simply means, human oversight is very important. And then finally, responsible AI is also very important. Any vendor should really be concerned about this sort of thing, and MasterControl is right up there. We're one of the very first companies that have gotten certified by the what is ISO, the organization responsible for standards. ISO 42001 is specifically related to responsible AI development. And we've just announced that we're quite happy that we've received that certification. Even before receiving the certification, we were following those types of standards. Even before it was published, the auditor came in and was quite impressed that we had already implemented those things from scratch from the very beginning, before that standard even existed. So that was great. So those types of things are important to understand, that you have trust in your vendor, because these types of things are considered. So we just want to give you an overview today of the opportunities certainly that exist for AI, and the acknowledgement, right? No surprise, the acknowledgement that a regulated industry requires very thoughtful and with purpose decisions about rolling out AI. I don't think it's something that no company is going to survive for long if they choose not to leverage AI. And so it's important to figure out, okay, how are we going to do that? And then as we use tools within MasterControl, how do we make sure that there's low risk, there's trust, etc. And so probably this slide is a great slide as far as a summary for saying here's why MasterControl is on top of the AI consideration right now. So I'll turn it over to Adria then, and really this is a slide that lets you know how to contact her. But let's see if we had any questions or anything.
So to the Danaher team and the Danaher subsidiaries on the line, any questions? I don't have any in the QA or the chat. No? Okay. If you have any questions, please take down my email address there on the screen and feel free to contact me. We're super excited to do this exclusive webinar for Danaher, and there will be more to come. So we'll continue to send those invites out as we schedule additional webinars. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it, and hope you enjoyed the coffee. Or don't forget to get your free coffee.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.